Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. Here, this is the spot where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Welcome home, Brains. There's only one requirement to hang out on the edge, is that you open your big brain and close your small mind. Did you bring your thinking caps? It's time to put them on, because the conversation starts now. Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. How are you today? You're back at the spot and the location where the conversations are pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Today we are with one exotic beauty, Marleen Mour, originally from Cairo, Egypt, now transplanted into Australia. She's going to tell us about her incredible journey to safety, to freedom, but also reigniting and invigorating herself by losing over 108 pounds, Brains. She is known as the permanent weight loss coach. We're going to talk about that, but also the mindset and the mastery and the discipline and the self-love that it takes to sustain that weight loss and how she's pouring into others. Let's welcome her to the show. How are you, Marleen?
Hi, April. Thank you so much for having me on your show. Yes,
Absolutely. And she's a radio host.
I am.
You are doing the most there. Tell my brains a little bit about you and how you show up in the world.
A little bit about me. Sounds like a question that I could answer in hours and hours. Which part specifically do you want?
Wow. Well, tell us your story and your journey and your truth.
Well, I am of Egyptian background. As you mentioned, I was born in Egypt, and grew up in a household that had a lot of tension in it. My father was quite an angry, aggressive human being, sort of angry at my mom, angry at the world. And yeah, there was a lot of fear, I suppose. And at a young age, I'm sure a lot of listeners will be able to relate to this. My mom used to comfort me with food, chocolate, baked goods, bread, cheeses, all those sorts of things. And when I look back, I think it was just really obvious that I think that entire generation, April, had no idea how to deal with emotions in general. And so my mom, in her best attempt to comfort me when I would be upset or scared or down, she would give me food. And so I learned at a very young age that anytime I felt a difficult emotion, I could make myself feel better by eating. And of course, in the short term, it worked. But in the background, it was creating an entirely new issue, which was my problem with weight. And by the time I was in my teens, I was, I think, about 99 kilos just before hitting 100 kilos. So just before hitting like maybe 250 pounds. I'll have to look up the conversion, but somewhere around there. Yeah, and that was just from simply the habit of eating all of my difficult emotions. And there was a lot of them because I grew up in a household where, you get punished if you spoke up, if you said no. And so saying yes and being a people pleaser became a big part of my identity to survive my childhood. And by the time I was 19, I found myself engaged to be married to somebody who had dislocated my shoulder in the past. And I realized in that moment that I was about to repeat my mother's life. And I already could see very clearly what my mom's life was like, April, and it was not a happy one at all. And so I made the decision in my mind that I was going to come to Australia. And the reason I chose Australia was between the age of 4 and 9, my mother had brought us here. And so I was familiar with Australia. My grandmother was here as well. And so I made the decision in my mind, that's it. I'm going to leave Egypt and I'm going to Australia. But I had no passport because our passports were locked away in a safe by my father. Oh, wow. And we weren't allowed to work because he didn't want us earning any money. And he made sure that we had very little money. So at the time, he didn't live with us in Egypt. He worked for the African Development Bank and he lived in Tunisia. So he would send money, but he would always wait until we'd run out and wait an extra week to really make sure we'd run out. before
Wow.
sending just enough for food. Yeah. And so despite growing up in a family with a very rich dad, he was so controlling with money that we certainly did not feel the freedom of. We lived in big houses and drove fancy cars, but when it came to just basic necessities, he made sure that they were difficult to get so that we never have enough to save.
Do you think that this is
And so,
let me ask you a question. Do you think that a part of
mm,
his upbringing was a part of that? You know, sometimes it's cultural and there's epigenetics. There is,
1000%.
you know, Egypt is very traditional, very rooted in different
1000%.
religious, yeah, different ideologies, so
Yeah.
you'll do
So
better
my
unless you know
family's
better.
Christian. We're not Muslim.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. He did the best he could with what he knew. And he grew up like in the ghettos of Egypt, not even in like Cairo, Egypt. And he worked his butt off to make something of himself. And he was the eldest son in a family of, I think, eight with six sisters. And when his parents passed, he was the one who, found his sisters' partners and, did all of that, took over the role of the father. And so within his family, he was like put in very high regard, like up on a pedestal by all his sisters because he really looked after them. But when it came to our family, he was very, very angry because when he met my mom, she was this Aussie girl who was visiting Egypt. And he loved the idea of having the ability to travel to Australia one day and maybe make a life in Australia. But he didn't take into account that her being Australian, or she's Egyptian, but having grown up in Australia, he didn't take into account that it also meant that she didn't abide by the cultural traditions
Right.
of an Egyptian woman. She was very independent, she earned more than him, and that really impacted his sense of manhood. In my mother's defense, though, when they got married, she was making more than him, and he went to the States to get his PhD. And he left her in Egypt with my older sister, who was 4 years old, and she was pregnant with me. And she held the fort with the 4-year-old daughter whilst pregnant and paid all the bills because he was off getting an education.
And that's strong, but again, like I said, where the ego comes into play is that he felt that he wasn't the head, he was the tail because he had to compete with a woman. But
Yes.
now so many women find themselves in situations to where no, they don't compete, but they emasculate men. So
Mm,
that could have been a challenge for him as well. So as you
yes.
progress and you start finding your own, you said that you got involved in a marriage. Was that a arranged marriage? What was that about?
So this is somebody that I had met in university at the University of Toronto. So I got a scholarship to the University of Toronto, and I met this guy there. He was a senior, I was a freshman, and very quickly it became a toxic relationship. He was very, very controlling, and yeah, I ended things with him when I went back to Egypt. I tried to end things with him while I was there, but he was just very obsessive. So I ended things when I went back to Egypt, but he still flew down and asked my father for my hand in marriage.
Oh, wow.
And my aunties and uncles got involved, and I mean, nobody asked me anything. And the consensus was, well, he flew all the way here. He must really love her. He's got a good education, blah, 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 blah. And they went out and they bought engagement rings. And they came home and they were like, here's your engagement ring. And that was it. And again, the way I was raised, I did not feel that I could say anything. My sister was very different to me. My sister was the rebel who, yeah, who knew how to speak up. As a young girl, I definitely did not know how to speak up, or I feared it very much. And so, yeah, when I found myself engaged to this guy and knew that he had already dislocated my shoulder when we were in Toronto, I knew that I had to make a change, like a drastic change. Like I had to leave Egypt.
Wow.
And so I made that decision without having a passport, without having any money. But I just, when you just have a knowing and you're like, it's done, I'm going.
Now, do you
And
have
within the
children?
next, Did I have children?
Yeah, do you have children?
Oh, I do now, but I was 19 at the time, so no, I didn't.
Okay. Well, you didn't have children with the first husband. Was
No,
it
we
a
were
first husband?
disengaged. We were
Disengaged. Okay.
disengaged. Yeah,
Okay.
we did
Okay.
not. I left. Yeah, before any wedding was planned. Yeah.
So when you left, was was everybody just like jaw drop? Were they like
Um,
shocked? I don't think that
yeah,
she would
I
do
literally
that.
ran away,
Marleen.
making the decision in my head, I'm going to Australia. I was in a university class and it was like one of those extra classes you do on the side just to get, credits. And these two guys came up to me, it was a philosophy class, and they said, there's a university competition and we need a team of three. We think you're pretty smart. Do you want to be part of our team? And I just looked at them and I said, what's the prize? And they said 2,000 US dollars each in cash, plus $2,000 each in like vouchers to like a bunch of shops. And I knew right away, I was like, this is God like aligning things for me right now. And so I said yes. And we did the competition. I won't go into the details of it, but we won by a mile. And I got the money. And I spent the next month making secret visits to the Australian embassy with a photo of my mother's passport and a photo of my birth certificate showing I'm her daughter. And my mom's passport was an Australian one. And yeah, I paid for a new Australian passport. And that was issued to me probably in about 30 days. And I carried that passport like in my clothes wherever I went, in my pants, wherever I went. And I only had enough money left to get a plane ticket to Romania.
Mm,
I did not have enough money to come all the way to Australia.
mm,
And so I thought, that's fine. I'm going to go to Romania. When I get there, I'm going to call my uncle who lives here in Australia and tell him I'm not going back to Egypt. I'm either staying here or I'm coming to Australia, but I need your help with a ticket. And I spoke to my mom because my mom had been wanting to leave for a very long time. Um, and she was afraid. She was terrified to leave, especially because my younger brother was maybe about 9 years old, and he was the only one in the entire extended family, April, carrying the family name.
oh wow.
Yeah. Um, so my mom tried to talk me out of it. She even called a priest over to the house to talk to me about, obeying your parents. And it was too late. Like I'd already bought the ticket. I'd made up my mind. I had told my mom, call up your brother. Like he's always been supportive. Tell him he'll get you tickets. Like, let's go. And eventually she said yes. She'd called up her brother and he said yes. And she was like, okay, yes, let's do it. And yet the night of my flight, she locked me in the fourth floor apartment that we lived in, that bolted the doors, and sat outside in the stairwell until my flight took off without me.
Mm,
And as you can imagine, for that entire period that I knew she deadbolted the doors and was sitting outside, I was like fuming. Like, I can't tell you the number of abusive text messages I sent her just from the absolute rage that I was in. And when she came in at 2 a.m. when my flight was due to take off, I literally just pushed her aside, took my suitcase, and ran down the stairs, got in the car, and drove to the airport like my life depended on it. And got there, didn't care where I left the car, and just went straight in. And of course, they confirmed, sorry, it's taking off now. And like, there's nothing we can do. You've missed your flight. And I dragged my suitcase back to the car. And I sat in the car, April, and I just started bawling my eyes out, just sobbing. And I sobbed. I can't remember how long I sobbed for, maybe a few minutes. And then suddenly, like, clarity resumed. And I called the airline and I told them that I had a flat tire and that I missed my flight. I said, what can I do? And they said, there's another flight tomorrow, but it's going to cost you, I think it was $100 or something like that. And at that point, I only had about $200 left. So I paid. and I didn't go home. I went to a friend's house, and the friend took me to the airport again the next day. And as we walked through the front doors, we saw my mother and my dad's brother standing inside. And they kind of locked eyes with us. And my friend said, "Oh, crap. Uh, I'll be waiting outside. I hope you make it." And he was like, "Good luck." And he went outside, and my uncle, who had locked eyes with me, started storming towards me. And when he got to me, he grabbed me by the shoulders and he shook me and he said in Arabic, like, "Where the hell do you think you're going?" And I said, "I'm getting the hell out of here." He said, "No, you're not." And he grabbed my suitcase out of my hands and just started walking off. And I
Well,
thought to myself, yeah,
yeah, but it's a long, arduous journey to try to find your freedom and find your independence when there is opposition. So you move forward, you get to Australia. Now, during all of this time, are you still in the thralls of an eating challenge, an eating disorder? Are you still eating
yes,
comfort there?
yeah, 1000%. I'm starving myself all day, perceiving food to be the problem. And then coming home at the end of every day. And the minute I'd be left alone with my thoughts and my feelings, I wouldn't know how to handle it. And so the food would come out and I'd binge. And it was just a repeat of that every day.
So you got to Australia, you got settled, you're starting to build a new life. What was your aha moment that you decided to take weight on and say, this is, I want to shed all of the emotions, all of the pain, all the anxiety that I left there in Egypt. I want to start a new life. What was your aha moment? What was the pivotal point for you?
There was a very specific moment when I realized that the issue wasn't the food, the issue was me. And it was maybe about a year after arriving to Australia, and I was still in the cycle of starving myself and binging, even though I was only binging on healthy food. But I woke up one morning after a massive binge feeling absolutely disgusting in my body. And if you've ever binged before, you know what that feels like. And I woke up and I had to go to work. And the last thing I wanted was to be seen. And I remember looking in the mirror and hearing what I was saying to myself. And it was something along the lines of, "You're a fat, disgusting pig. Who's ever going to love you?" And I remember in that moment kind of hearing it and recognizing that this is me speaking to myself and that I had run away from Egypt and my family and everybody that I said was abusing me. And here I was on the other side of the planet abusing myself.
Wow. So you look at yourself and you say, okay, I'm going to take this chance. What was your first step? Because okay, the realization, and you've got to want to do it, brains. I mean, it can't be one of those things that you want to half behind do it. You got to do it all the way, and be dedicated and be disciplined. What was your first step? Did you seek out classes, courses, dietitian? Did you just stop eating? Did you start going to the gym? What was your progression?
Um, I think the first thing I recognized was that that current version of me was not capable of getting the body of her dreams because she had a horrible relationship with food, a horrible relationship with herself, and a horrible relationship with her body, an abusive one. And so my first step was to discover what the hell does it mean to love yourself? What does that look like
Wow.
in
Wow.
action? And the first thing I recognized was simply the way I was talking to myself was not the way that I would speak to somebody I love or even somebody I just met.
Mm, mm, mm.
And so at the very foundation of everything, I realized instead of focusing and obsessing on the food, which was just at the surface, I needed to go down way beneath, fixing the food or forcing a change in the food and actually go very down to the very root cause of things and start changing the way that I'm treating myself and the way that
Right.
I'm talking to myself
Mm-hmm.
and no longer starve myself and restrict myself and punish myself and beat myself up because I ate a bloody donut or a biscuit.
Right. Right.
So that was my first step. Yeah.
So when you got there, then you just went rogue. You said, okay, I am going to keep going, and you started to see the progression of the weight loss. Now, Marleen, I want to ask you a question about that too, because a lot of times people have these massive, again, you lost 108 pounds, have
Hmm.
these massive weight losses, but they don't recognize the person that they see in the mirror once they have achieved that. Once they start getting the compliments from men, once they start going and putting on clothes and they're falling off of them and they're getting a smaller size, the conversation that they start having with themselves, this new person, that's an adjustment too. It's a whole psychological thing. How did you put that in your container? How did you get your head around actually the look and feel and the woman that you were becoming?
I think that's actually a very good question. And the answer is that you need to, or I needed to step into that version of myself before, like for the weight to come off. I needed to start seeing myself as that version of myself, the version that loves herself, respects herself, looks after herself, has confidence, all of those things. I had to start seeing myself as that version of me in order for the change to happen. And what I see with clients who, or with people who lose the weight by forcing it through a change in, habits with food, instead of actually changing who they are in their relationship with themselves, is they get the weight off. And then when they get all this attention externally, because they haven't developed the self love inside, they're very drawn to the attention that they get. And it's often toxic attention. Does that make sense? Or not the right
Absolutely.
type of attention.
Right.
And that becomes very dangerous because either they start to realize, oh my God, I actually don't like this much attention, or it doesn't feel safe, and then they regain the weight,
Right.
or they enter into toxic relationships because they think this attention is love,
Mm.
because they don't know yet what it means to love themselves.
So in your program, you work with people from cradle to grave. No pun intended, brains, but from the beginning to the end to help them, number one, love the person that they are with that extra 100 pounds,
Amen.
start visualizing who they want to be and what is the reason behind that they're really losing the weight. Am I losing it for me? Am I losing it for a spouse? Am I losing it because I'm going back to the high school reunion? Am I losing it because of health issues? What is your why, brains? Is
Yeah.
so important because that is what's going to keep you focused. That is going to be the thing that you set your goals. Incremental goals, me, I am one of those people, unfortunately, that I validate my weight loss by the number on the scale. But that's not necessarily it. You can lose inches, you can lose back fat.
Yeah.
I got excited because when I started working out again, I started to sweat. There's only a few ways that you're going to lose the weight, either by breathing, by sweating, or surgically having it removed, or diuretics, those type of things. You've got to be able to put your body into a syncopation that it gets used to this because this is now going to be your lifestyle. This is
It's not a short-term fix. It's just what I do now. It's yeah, it's second nature, and that's the stage you want to get to in your life where it's just
okay.
normal now.
So before we go into your program, what is it that you do for yourself outside of wake up looking pretty? But what is like a daily routine or weekly routine for you that keeps you focused and motivated and creating this life change?
I think the biggest habit that I've created that has enabled all of this is the habit of self-awareness.
Mm, okay.
Like, what am I feeling? What am I saying to myself that's causing this feeling? Or what am I thinking about that's causing this feeling? And like being able to have that self-awareness to not just name the feeling and the cause of it, but then be able to go and then fix the cause of the feeling.
Mm.
That has been the biggest change in my life and for a lot of clients as well.
So it's not just the diet or the exercise of hand to mouth. It's a whole
No.
it's a whole changing your outer perspective, your outer look. And also you are a very spiritual woman. Tell us how God plays a great part in this for you.
God's always played a part. I didn't realize it because I turned my back on God. for a long time. But he was still there every step of the way, opening doors and closing doors that I shouldn't be walking through for me. Um, but yeah, I think God came back into my life, or I accepted God back into my life maybe just about a year ago. And I can't tell
Wow.
you the difference that it has made in terms of not just inner peace, but even success and momentum. Like with more peace, I have more success. And the power of having God in my life has meant that I'm no longer efforting to do things on my own. It's like I'm co-creating with this creator who knows me and knows what's best for me and loves me unconditionally and always has my back. So the peace has come from knowing that because he's got my back, if something's out of my control, sweet, it can't possibly be in better hands than
Right.
in God's hands. And,
Also, the awareness of gratitude, the
yeah,
frequency of gratitude. People think that God is this, I don't know, everybody's got
man
a
in the
different
sky with a
version.
beard.
Yeah, exactly. I call him Gus, God, universe, spirit.
Yeah.
I have a personal relationship as well, but it is so beautiful to be able to offset your anxiety, your
Mm,
worry, even to this mythical God that we have. You will hear the sound of the voices so sweet. You can taste the love on your tongue. You can feel the hug and the embrace if you allow yourself. I mean, I tell people all the time, you believe in the internet, we're using it right now, but can you see it? You believe
yeah.
in electricity, but can you see it? There's the air out there, but can you see it? So there's a
Yep.
lot of things that you can't see that you have to go by faith and not necessarily by sight. You're also the author of a great book, so you were able to put some of your thoughts into that, and you created a radio show. Tell us about the radio show.
The radio show is called Winning Life. And so I share with listeners all the things that have enabled me to win in life, in my personal life, having, started off where I started off and come to Australia with less than $200 in my pocket,
Mm,
and to have, built the business that I have, and the financial security that I have as a single mom. And yeah, the peace that I've created in my life and in my heart as well. And even like when you study the law of attraction, you start to understand that the frequency of love, peace, and gratitude is what draws everything in. So
everything.
I talk about so many things. Of course, yes, I talk about self-love, permanent weight loss, because that's what I specialized in, but I talk about so many other things. They could be related to law of attraction. They could be related to, emotional well-being, to relationships, to setting boundaries, all those sorts of things somehow still all tie in to loving yourself and permanent weight loss. So yeah, it's a daily show. It used to be once a week, but they asked me to start doing it daily, and
Wow.
it's the first show every day because it's there to uplift and set people on the right track each day.
We're going to also put the link to that so people can tune in and
Yes.
listen to that. I want to hear a little bit about your program. Now, you have a dynamic program, you and your team, that work with individuals on this goal, on this trajectory, this life changing movement of permanent weight loss. Why don't you tell us about the program and what is this permanent weight loss? I'm taking notes.
Yeah, I know. What a bold thing to say. Yes, but we say it and we guarantee it as a result. Of course, that means you need to do the work yourself. It's not going to magically happen. It's not like people join the gym and they think they're going to lose weight. No, you need to go to the gym and you need to use the equipment. Yeah, having the membership is not going to get you there. So yeah, we have a crazy high success rate. And yeah, if people simply do the things and watch the videos and consume the content, then yes, permanent weight loss is promised. So, what is permanent weight loss and how do we guarantee it? Permanent weight loss means that you get to your goal weight where you are comfortable and happy in your body and feel like your body is a tool, no longer a burden, and have peace with food and know how to manage your emotions instead of eat your emotions. And weight is just no longer an issue. It's not an issue. You know how to go on a holiday, you know how to eat out, and the food doesn't, I mean, the weight does not come back on. and you feel satisfied, right? So you
Wow.
have to feel satisfied. Yeah. So that's number one goal in the program. When people come in, it's they go, how many calories should I eat? Or what portions? I go, I don't want you to thinking about any of that stuff. I just want you to eat till you're satisfied. And
You
I want you
also
to
do something else very special though too, don't you? Do some sort of
genetic testing.
yeah, diet testing. What Tell us a
Yes.
little bit about what that's about.
Yeah, so there's two components to the program. The first component is the genetic testing, and we do that because we need to make sure that what we're going to recommend to each client is actually what's right for their unique body at this stage of their lives. Because, even what worked in their 20s is probably not going to work in their 40s, 50s, or 60s. So we do the genetic testing because like we get so much clarity on it, not just around the food, and even when they should eat and how many meals a day they should eat and whether they should have a high protein diet or a low protein diet, high carb or low carb, and which carbs and which proteins. But we also learn a lot about their personality based on the hormones that their body produces.
Oh
So we
wow.
know if they're an introvert or an extrovert. We know if they need a lot of personal space or if they're enlivened by being around people. We know if they're a morning person or an evening person.
Hmm.
And so this helps each client let go of all the stuff that they've been hearing out there in the diet industry because so many clients are forcing themselves. Oh, waking up at 5 a.m. I got to work out at 6 and I need to eat every 3 hours or I need to do intermittent fasting. Whatever it is that they think, is the right thing to do based on what's popular in the diet industry. So
Right.
this allows them to forget all of that and just start understanding what's right for their body. And
Right.
sometimes I'll say things like, oh my God, Marleen, like actually now when I think about back when I was in my healthiest weight, that's how I used to like live my life. And so it just kind of gives them clarity and permission to go back to working with their body instead of trying to force their body to do something that's not right for it.
Do you encourage visualization? I do that. I have in my meditation, I visualize the number. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm trying to get away from it, but the number, that's my motivator. But also a picture of myself when I was in a smaller version of myself, already seeing the outfits that I'm going to wear. Already, again, that's preparing your mind to be introduced to this brand new person. So a lot
Yeah.
of that, I know a lot of weight loss programs or weight management programs. We don't want to say weight loss because sometimes it's just about tighten it up. You may not be able to lose it, but you got to move it. People, the hardest part of exercise brains is putting on your tennis shoes.
Yeah. Getting your ass there.
Getting out there and doing it,
Yeah.
and being grateful for the fact that you are able to move. Well, you provided us such dynamic information and inspiration with your program, with your incredible story of resilience, with your weight loss. Let's ask you some fun questions in closing. How about
Go
that?
for it, April.
Okay. Wow. Okay. You live in Australia. If I came to visit you next weekend, where would you take me?
Ooh, just one weekend. I'd
No,
force you to
I'll be there
stay.
next weekend, but where would we go? I have to be there at least 3 weeks.
Oh, I'd force you to stay, yeah, at least 2 weeks because there's so much to say. But if you were just here for a weekend, I would uh, jump on a ferry with you so we can go down the Parramatta River and see all of Sydney and get off at the Opera House and Harbour Bridge.
I've
And
been there. Can we have a mojito while we're there?
heck yes, yes, please. Yeah, afternoon cocktails are my kind of Sunday. So yeah, 100% we can do that.
I
Yeah,
love
we
that place on the other side of the opera house, and you go up, and it's where they have these beautiful little shops, and on it's bustling on Saturday and Sunday, and you can have breakfast, and you can have tea, and see the museum. It's absolutely beautiful. Do you
yeah,
remember Cairo, Egypt, at
of
all?
course. Yes, of course I do.
Where would you take me there?
Oof, Cairo. I would probably take you to the Khan el Khalili markets.
Mm.
Yes, because you probably want to do some shopping and take you to some authentic Egyptian restaurants. Probably take you definitely to the pyramids. Obviously, we would have to do that. But I think the markets would be up on top of
Do
the
you
list.
still
And
do you
the
still
top.
have family there in Egypt?
You know what? My sister was living there up until 8 weeks ago. She came to Australia 8 weeks ago with her husband and kids to live.
Oh,
So
that's
the immediate
beautiful.
family is all here now. Yes.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. If you were a car, Marlene, what kind of car would you be?
Oh, goodness, April. I don't know anything about cars, so I will just tell you. I'm just going to give you my car because that's probably the only car I know, which is an Audi A5 convertible. Because I love life. The roof should be off. I want to connect with life. So just
Absolutely.
any convertible, that would be me.
That's beautiful. If you were an appliance in the kitchen, what appliance would you be?
Oh, an appliance in the kitchen. Oh, goodness. I don't know. I've never been asked that. An appliance in the kitchen. I'd say a pan because I'm versatile and you can cook lots of things.
A pan?
Yeah.
Okay. I can see you maybe being what do you guys call it there? The Vitamix. We call it a Vitamix.
What's a
Uh,
Vitamix?
it's
A NutriBullet.
well, no, kind of NutriBullet kind of does smoothies and all that. But the Vitamix, you can make ice cream, you can make soups. It's a chopper, it's a store, it's a self container. You know, you can
Okay,
just kind of do
interesting.
everything. It has multi purposes. That
Yeah.
was fun. What would you say to a young woman that's about 25 years old that is in the mix, that she is feeling her feelings right now, that she's overweight, that she's not happy? What would you say to her?
I would say don't run away from your feelings. Your feelings are an emotional guidance system. Feel the feelings, listen to what they're telling you, and stop suppressing them and distracting yourself from them with food.
Okay, that's good. Um, what would you say to a young woman that is in a situation to where she feels trapped? You know, I mean, you went to the extreme. You ran away. There's some people that
I
can't run away or fear. Tell them how to encourage and embrace that fear.
um I would say do the thing you fear, and the death of fear is certain. Like if you go through life making decisions based on fear, you will keep shrinking your life.
Mm,
But if you start to make decisions based on love, your life will keep expanding.
wow, that's deep. That is that's I get that 100%. You are doing everything you want to do. You're living your best life. What is left on your life list? What else do you want to accomplish? Where do you see yourself?
Oh, where do I see myself? I see myself on big stages spreading this message, touching lots and lots and lots of people's lives and hearts, uh, and getting to a place where the diet industry is making way less because people are actually getting there and staying there.
Right,
The diet
right.
industry has like a 95% failure rate and they make like $300 billion a year, April. So I see that in my future. Definitely not something I can do on my own, but I can see a movement starting and people starting to address their emotions and love themselves instead of suppressing it all with food. And, I already have my little boy. I don't see myself having any more kids. I would have loved to have had another kid. But I think at this stage it's too late for me to meet somebody and build enough trust, in the
Right,
time that I have. I
right.
would like to say that I would like to have a happy, healthy relationship. But I also have a lot of disbelief around whether or not that's possible or I can
It
find
is
that.
possible. I've been married 40 years,
Aw.
40 years, and I love the breeze that keeps him cool, Marlene.
April, I gotta come and
Yes,
listen to more
there
about our
is
relationship.
possibility. But again, just like you manifested everything else in your life, and be specific, down to the toenails. What do you want? Because again, I don't have to tell you, you draw that. You are what you eat.
Mhm.
You know, that will be there. You are raising a young man. What are you pouring into him?
A lot of love, a lot of self-worth, a lot of discipline, and I'm pouring it in through example instead of, you know, telling him about it because I know from personal experience, a lot of my inherited habits were seen. My parents didn't say when you get angry, yell and smash some things, but that's what I observed and that's what I did. And so when I became a mom, I realized the significance of being a role model for my child. And that's when I dug even deeper into self-love and, calming my anger and learning how to manage my emotions so that
Right.
I could teach my son how to get through life in a healthy way.
Yeah, because it is definitely something that we need to navigate through. What is one of
Yeah.
your guilty pleasures?
Ooh, one of my guilty pleasures. Eating a whole pizza to myself on a Friday night on the couch with nobody there to bother me or talk to me.
See, and that's what I'm saying. If you have a discipline and that is not your norm every day, that is
Exactly.
something that you can really enjoy. And food is
Yes.
not the enemy.
No, it is not. It is one of the pleasures in life. It's supposed to be enjoyed. But and this is very important because when you eat it past the point of enjoyment, now it's no longer a pleasure. So, if I have a big pizza in front of me and I feel full after 6 slices, I'm not going to eat the next two because now I'm no longer enjoying it. Now I feel yuck in my body. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So, give us the top three takeaways that we should walk away with um, after going with your journey. Give me your top three pieces of advice.
Uh, I would say definitely make decisions from a place of love instead of a place of fear. So even with food, if you're skipping meals, you're doing that from a place of fear instead of a place of love. I would say definitely get in touch and do the genetic testing so that you can finally let go of all the gibberish and the generic information out there. So you can start to work with your body instead of against it. That's a big part of self-love. And the third tip I would give is, start listening to what you're saying to yourself and check in and ask yourself, would I say this to somebody I love? And if it's not, then let's start with that.
That's beautiful. Tell my brains how to get in contact with you, how they can work with you, how they can recruit you to come out and speak anywhere in the world, brains. Okay. She is just an airplane flight away.
Amen. Best way to reach out to me is on Facebook or Instagram. Um, my team is very active on there and we don't miss anything on there. So you can find me there. The name is Marleen Mour, and you'll see that in the subject, I'm sure, when April shares this with you guys. And you can also email me directly if you want at marleen@fittheroes.com.
Can you give us a little direction on how to find you on now? We can go on YouTube and find you, or what? Where where is your got a mouthful of marbles there? Where is your show housed? Your podcast or radio show?
Oh, my radio show, if you just Google Central Coast Radio, or just type in centralcoastradio.com, you can also listen to it online.
That's
Uh,
important because
yes.
we want to stay connected with you. We want to hear your continued inspiration and motivation. Brains, we want you to experience the highest and greatest good. We want you to ask yourself often and regularly, how can it get any better than this? And what else is possible? Let that be your mantra. Try it for a week and see what happens. You'll be amazed. We're going to put all of Marleen's information at the back of the interview. We're going to run this interview all over the planet. Share it with someone. Because you know what? Weight may not be physical. It might be the mental weight. It might be the financial weight. It might be the spiritual weight. It might be the weight of a relationship. There's a lot of things that can be heavy in your life. So what we want you to do is shed those extra pounds. Thank you, Marleen, for being here on the
Thank you,
edge.
April.
We appreciate you so much. Brains, find us over on Spreaker because Blog Talk is aging out, unfortunately. And we are going to pick it up and keep it moving. All of our edgy conversations, you'll be able to Google us all over the planet. We're on YouTube. We are on LinkedIn. We are on Instagram. We're here for you. Again, thank you so much for joining us here on The Edge. Marleen, you are the best.